Hello everyone. I know it's been a while since my last video, and I'm sorry for that, but circumstances have kept me from being very productive. Yep, that's me. I lost a game of poker, and my soul got put in a fiendish rhino warrior. It's not even max rarity. They could have at least used a sleeve. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game that has had many different archetypes throughout the years. Some have been amazing, some have been terrible, and some have just been straight wacky. However, what happens when the card developers run out of ideas? Well, you make cards in your card game that are based off cards from another card game, and that's how we got the Poker Knights archetype. They were an inconspicuous set of monsters back in the Duel Monsters anime that were originally just the three titular knights, King, Queen, and Jack, and they were used by Yugi as a tribute engine of sorts to summon his Egyptian god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon, or occasionally to do some other gimmick that no one really cared about. For the longest time in the real card game, they were just that. 3 monsters, 1 fusion, and that was all there was to it. However, in recent years, they got some nifty support that turned them from an outdated tribute engine into a somewhat effective tribute engine, with a few extra tricks up their sleeve to boot. To take a look deeper, let's deal the cards and open the game. First off, here are the 3 monsters this archetype is based around. Queen's Knight, a level 4 vanilla with 1500 attack and 1600 defense, Jack's Knight, a level 5 vanilla with 1900 attack and 1000 defense, and King's Knight, a level 4 with 1600 attack, 1400 defense, and this effect. When this card is normal summoned while you control Queen's Knight, you can special summon 1 Jack's Knight from your deck, and all of these are light warriors. Behold, the complete Poker Knight tribute engine. I'll be honest, it's bad. The stats on the monsters are all low, seeing as Jack's Knight is a level 5 for some reason, and King's Knight is pretty awful. He requires a normal summon to activate the effect, so you'd better stock up on that double summon. He can only summon from the deck, and he even has a win on his effect. Sure, it's a 2-card combo for 3 monsters, letting you summon the Egyptian god cards or Guilford the Lightning with its effect, but you've burned through 1 normal summon already just to begin the combo. Probably 2 after you summoned Queen's Knight in the first place. Better stock up on that triple summon. Later on, the Poker Knights received a boss monster, giving you another use for them. Arcana Knight Joker is a level 9 fusion with 3800 attack, 2500 defense, and the following effect. A fusion summon of this card can only be done with the above fusion materials. Once per turn, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that targets this face-up card on the field, quick effect, you can discard the same type of card, monster, spell, or trap, negate the effect. The stats are impressive, but the negation is underwhelming. It only works if he himself is targeted, and it requires a specific type of discard to negate the effect. You don't even get to destroy the card. At least it's easier to pull this off with newer support, but is it really worth it? Knight Joker is still worth running because of the beefy body and the Poker Knight fusion card I'll get to later, but I expected a lot more. For many long years, that would be the end of Poker Knights, sitting there with their physically impressive yet ultimately underwhelming boss monster, and their outdated tribute engine that requires triple summon. They got a new member in 2018 in the form of Arcana Extra Joker. It's basically Arcana Knight, but flexing to the gram. It's a Link 3 light warrior with 2800 attack, arrows pointing up, bottom left and bottom right. It requires 3 warrior monsters with different names, and it has this effect. Once per turn, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that targets this face-up card on the field or a monster this card points to, quick effect, you can discard that same type of card, monster, spell or trap, negate the activation. When this Link Summon card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 warrior normal monster from your deck, and if you do, add 1 level 4 warrior monster from your deck to your hand. I hate to say it, but this monster carries on Knight Joker's theme of being underwhelming. You make it with the Queen and King combo, and the first effect is just Knight Joker but better because it can protect other monsters, but that's still a specific discard to negate 1 targeting effect, and it still doesn't even destroy the card you negated. That final effect is a good idea in theory, letting you summon Queen and search King to kickstart your plays next turn, but it only triggers by battle destruction, and that Queen's Knight only has 1600 defense, and your opponent just destroyed a 2800 attack monster by battle. It may not survive until your next main phase. You can safely run Extra Joker. The extra deck space isn't exactly tight here, but I do wish that the comeback for Poker Knights was a bit stronger. Years later in 2021, after we left the Dark Ages, Poker Knights received a substantial support wave from the King's Court booster pack, giving them much more consistency and an actually decent boss monster, as well as some more interesting uses for the knights themselves. Let's dive right in, shall we? First up we have Imperial Bower. It's a level 4 warrior with 1500 attack and defense, and if you control no other monsters, you contribute this card, take 2 different monsters from your deck among Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and or Jack's Knight, and either add them to your hand or special summon each monster. You can only use this effect of Imperial Bower once per turn. Did they forget to put a special summoning condition on here? Imagine if the effect said, if you control no other monsters, you can special summon this card, and then do the tribute. Instant Queen and King combo. And if that's too much, just lock you into Light Warrior monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. The way it is now, you can only special summon Queen and King to the field for an instant rank 4, because King's effect only goes off by a normal summon, and you likely used it already on this thing in the first place. Bower just confuses me. The next monster is Joker's Knight. It's a level 5 with 2000 attack and this effect. You can send one Queen's Knight, King's Knight, or Jack's Knight from your deck to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, this card's name becomes the sent monster's name until the end phase. During the end phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other Light Warrior monster in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and if you do, add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Joker's Knight once per turn. Now this is something worth talking about. The obvious play here is to ditch Queen's Knight from the deck to special summon Joker, then get off King's effect with your normal summon in order to assemble the 3 Knights. Now you can go into a rank 5, fusion summon if you can, put out the Link monster, or use a later support card to go into the deck's new boss monster. It's already a solid card, and that's without getting into the last effect. This is an effect shared by this card and some spell and trap support, and it's a good recycling ability. It gets your Knights back into the deck to let them be used again, and then gets Joker back into your hand for instant reuse next turn, or to provide discard fuel for the effects of the Jokers. Despite the name, this Knight is no joke. As expected, and hoped for, this wave of support granted us a new boss monster for the Archetype. Arcana Triumph Joker is a level 10 Light Warrior with question mark attack, 2500 defense, and this effect. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can send one Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight from your hand and or face-up monster zone to the graveyard, special summon this card. This card gains 500 attack times the combined number of cards in both players' hands. You can discard one card, destroy all face-up cards your opponent controls with the same type, monster, spell, or trap as the discarded card. This is by far the best boss monster in the deck, that actually belongs to the Archetype at least. It can summon itself from the graveyard so you don't really need to run more than one. It takes its tributes from the hand or the field, it can gain high attack values while coming with a good defense value as standard, and it has a non-once per turn nuke effect, admittedly of only face-up cards and one card type at a time. Sure, she's got no protection and no floating, but that proactive removal effect is much better than Knight Joker's specific targeting protection, and with the right setup, her stats could even surpass his. Definitely run 1 or 2 Triumph Jokers, she's your deck's primary boss monster. Or is she? Well, there's a certain support card in this wave that spices things up. Thunderspeed Summon is a quick play spell card with this effect. During the main or battle phase, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon one level 10 monster, or if you control Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight, you can apply this effect instead. Add one level 10 non-dark monster with question mark attack from your deck to your hand. Then, immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon one level 10 monster. You can only activate one Thunderspeed Summon per turn. Hearing this effect without looking at the card's art, you might think that it's a way to search and summon Arcana Triumph Joker, and you wouldn't be wrong. Then you look at the art and realize that she's your plan B in this case. This card was designed with one primary purpose in mind, to summon Slifer the Sky Dragon, and the Winged Dragon of Ra, plus Sphere Mode. Poker Knights were used by Atem in the anime to summon Slifer 3 times if you include the Pyramid of Light movie, and they were attributed to summon Ra in the final duel of the series, which is probably why both of these are valid targets for the effect, and why Egyptian god card support got tied to the Poker Knights in the first place. I won't be discussing the god cards much in this video, but this does mean that running a single Slifer and a couple copies of the Revived Sky God is a pretty decent option. Besides that, Thunderspeed Summon is the quickest way to search out your archetypal boss monster and get her on the field, so definitely run a copy or two, whatever kind of deck you're playing. Now for some trivia. The only other cards you can actually search with this effect at the time of recording are Maat, Blackwing Aurora the Northern Lights, and Cyber Altanin, none of which can actually be normal summoned, and none of which are relevant to this discussion, but information never hurt anybody. You could also use this card as Earthbound Immortal support as a quick double summon for your level 10 boss monsters. Or you could just run double summon, if you want to be boring. Now for the rest of the spell and trap support. First up we have face card Fusion. Fusion summon one Light Warrior Fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. If you control Queen's Knight, King's Knight, or Jack's Knight, you can use one monster from your deck as fusion material. You can only activate one face card fusion per turn. If you want to summon Arcana Knight Joker, this card is pretty great. It only requires one knight on the field, the others can be one in your hand and one in your deck, and this deck likes having knights in the graveyard. However, this card doesn't actually specify summoning Knight Joker. The summon pool is technically larger than just one monster, but the list of cards that can actually be summoned using this card's special effect in a dedicated Poker Knight deck is quite limited. Things like Denial Deity Doten, Iditin the Conqueror Star if you use Triumph Joker, Guilty Gear Freed the Magical Knight if you run any Earth Warriors, Neos Knight if you actually want to run Neos, and a couple other options that are not practical and not worth investing in. These are all technically valid options, but they require extra setup or including unusable monsters. A 3450 Neos Knight is not worth running that brick in your Poker Knights deck. But I'll go back to Denial Deity Doten, who allows you to mill any monster from your deck if you fusion summon him using this card, making him a good combo with Slifer the Sky Dragon, as it gets Slifer in the graveyard for you to use your revival cards on him later, or just Arcana Triumph Joker if you want quicker access to her. Basically, if you want to summon Night Joker or Denial Deity Doten, this card is great at that. Anything else, and you'll need to experiment on your own time. Next up, we have their last spell card from this wave, Joker's Straight. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Have you seen the way he looks at Batman?
Me in a thong?
This card, one card. Special summon one Queen's Knight from your deck. Add one King's Knight or Jack's Knight from your deck to your hand. Then, immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon one monster. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except light warrior monsters. It also has the same recycling effect as Joker's Knight, the one where you shuffle monsters back into your deck and add the card to your hand during the end phase, and both effects are hard once per turns. For the Archetype, this is fantastic. It's a one card Poker Knight combo at the cost of a simple discard, and with all the recursion in the deck, that's hardly even a cost. It does lock you into light warriors from the extra deck, but that's not too big of a deal considering you can go into Night Joker with the fusion card, Extra Joker, or just Exceed Summon Utopia and therefore the Lightning, just to name a few. In addition, you can now activate Thunder Speed Summon. It's all been set up for you. And let's quickly remind everyone why that recovery effect is so good for the deck. It puts straight back into your hand at the cost of just recycling your dead Poker Knights back into your deck, so you can activate straight again on your next turn. This prepares your Triumph Joker to nuke spell cards, it gives her and Slifer more attack points, and it prepares the extra deck Jokers to negate spell targeting. This is a perfect card for the Archetype, and it's well worth running at 3. Their first trap card is Joker's Wild. Oh yeah, I'm sure he is. During the main or battle phase, send one spell from your deck to the graveyard that specifically lists all of Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight. This effect becomes that spell's effect when that card is activated. During the end phase, if this card is in your graveyard, it shares the recycling effect of Straight and Joker, and both effects are hard once per turns. This card is a less useful card than Straight, but it's still decent. The most obvious play here is pitching Joker's Straight to the graveyard to use it immediately on your opponent's turn, or at least get the card into your hand during the end phase if Joker's Wild got negated. This could be to save yourself from taking battle damage, to activate some of the quick play support during your opponent's turn, or to bypass the summoning restrictions of Joker's Straight, letting you make any extra deck play you want during your next turn by activating this in your opponent's main phase 2 or end phase. Just make sure you don't activate Joker's Straight as anything other than Chainlink 1, or King won't know when to activate his effect. Other targets include Face Card Fusion, Thunder Speed Summon, and Royal Straight, which is a card we'll get into later. However, these are all secondary options for if you already got set up before playing Wild, and 2 of those are quick play spell cards as it is. It also comes with a standard recursion, preparing your Jokers to deal with trap cards in whatever form they take. I run this card as a one-off. Their final trap card is Court of Cards. If you control no monsters or only control Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and or Jack's Knight, you can special summon one Queen's Knight, King's Knight, or Jack's Knight from your hand or graveyard. You can banish up to 1 each of Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and King's Knight. You can banish up to 1 each Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and or Jack's Knight from your hand and or graveyard, draw the same number of cards you banished. You can only use 1 Court of Cards effect per turn, and only once that turn. All things considered, this is pretty decent. Summoning a Poker Knight could let you start the Queen and King combo or get a dead Jack's Knight out of your hand, but this is a trap card that requires you to control no monsters or control specific monsters, so I am seeing this as more of a last second battle phase move. The second effect is pretty great, letting you draw up to 3 cards at once for getting rid of resources that you already used, powering up your Arcana Triumph Joker or Slifer. This isn't a card that helps your players get started, but it can enable comebacks and play extension, and for that, I say it's worth a copy or 2. For a while, like when I started scripting this video back in 2022, that was the final Poker Knight card, but we have 2 late arrivals to talk about before I close out the video. The first card is Royal Straight. It's a quick play spell that says, send 1 of each of Queen's Knight, Jack's Knight, and King's Knight from your hand or face up field to the graveyard. Then, special summon 1 monster from your hand, deck, extra deck, or graveyard that mentions all of Queen's Knight, Jack's Knight, and King's Knight. It's like a face card fusion, but a quick play, and only able to summon a specific 3 monsters. However, summoning Arcana Triumph Joker from anywhere outside the banishment is a pretty good choice, and it can still summon Night Joker if you're desperate. However, there is now another option. Royal Straight Slasher is a level 6 light warrior with 2400 attack, 1350 defense, and this effect. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned with Royal Straight. If you have all of Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight in your graveyard, you can send one monster of each level between 1 and 5 from your hand and or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy all cards your opponent controls. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target up to 3 light warrior monsters in your graveyard, special summon them. You can only use each effect of Royal Straight Slasher once per turn. Oh boy. This is an anime original monster, of course, and the effect in the anime was exactly like this. Yugi ran a mishmash of normal and effect monsters, providing plenty of fuel for this effect, whereas in an orthodox Poker Knight deck, you don't have any monsters with a level lower than 4 minus your hand traps. If you can pull off the nuke effect, then it's good, of course it is, but good luck getting the effect off while you draw into a bunch of bricks. I could see people maybe using Ash Blossoms and Effect Veilers to cover levels 1 and 3, and Life Force Harmonizer could be your level 2. Did you know that it protects you from sparks? But wouldn't you rather use those hand traps for their actual effects rather than as fuel for this hard to access field nuke? It is 5 free Foolish Burials, but the combination of level requirements firmly places it in the gimmicky section of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The floating might just be the card's best effect, but it only triggers by battle destruction and this card has no effect protection. If all you want is the 3 knights on board, use Joker's Straight. And frankly, I think Thunderspeed Summon is a better way to get an instant summon of Arcana Triumph Joker. I am glad that this card was finally made, but I wish that it had been made better. Royal Straight is decent, and Royal Straight Slasher is a bad nuke card with floating that can't compensate. Okay, that got a bit negative. Let's see if we can change that by looking at the strengths and weaknesses. Field presence is going to be strong 9 times out of 10. Summoning all 3 Poker Knights is easier than ever now, with Joker's Knight and Joker's Straight helping you out a lot. From there, you can make links, fusions, Xyzs, but primarily limited to light warrior monsters, which is a decently strong field of monsters all in all. This also boosts their comeback ability, as you can restart plays pretty easily from a single card, such as Court of Cards or the self-recycling Joker's Straight, so long as you have monsters left in the deck in order to summon them out. There's also a lot of generic support you can use. Reinforcement of the army, unexpected die, you'll be getting a lot of use out of the cards to support level 4 warrior monsters. Mound of the Bound Creator could also be a somewhat decent field spell to use in this deck, as the deck doesn't have one of its own, and Arcana Triumph Joker just so happens to fall under its protection. The weaknesses, however, are a bit more cut and dry. King's Knight is a pain. He needs to be normal summoned, he only summons from the deck, and his effect even says when, so he's more often than not the man who messes up your plays. The boss monsters aren't great. I know I praise Triumph Joker, but the opponent can beat over her by just playing every card in their hand, and this is modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That's practically written into the rulebook. She also has no quick effect to interfere with their plays. Extra Joker and Night Joker are mediocre, and Royal Straight Slasher is irrelevant. So in a twist of fate, alongside Denial Deity Doten, Slifer might genuinely be the best boss monster Poker Knights can put out semi-reliably. He is technically a special guest of the Archetype due to Thunderspeed Summon, but a deck solely focused on Slifer stops being pure Poker Knights rather quickly. The deck lacks any real way to interrupt the opponent. The extra deck Joker's targeting negation doesn't count, and while summoning Slifer on your opponent's turn is cool, it's not the most reliable option. There's no proper negation, no quick way to deal with your opponent's cards. You essentially have to be on the front foot the whole time and hope your opponent doesn't get started too quickly. Here's my pure-ish Poker Knight deck list, and they can have a little bit of Slifer as a treat. Poker Knights confuse me a little. They're a cool bunch of cards thematically, with the whole face card theming, but did this really need to be an archetype? They're best known for being sacrificed for Egyptian god cards, to the point where that's one of their biggest functions among their new support. That's great, truly, but in that case, why wasn't the whole archetype focused around the god cards, giving us the tribute engine that they've needed for a long time? It feels like they wanted to make god card support, then attached a plan B to it as an afterthought. That being said, I still do like this archetype. Their aesthetic is very cool, and Triumph Joker is a fun boss monster, and anything that supports the Egyptian god cards gets a thumbs up from me. I'm not sure what I'd like to see more of from this deck aside from another boss monster that's actually good and carries some negation. Perhaps they can branch out into Synchro or Xyz monsters, or give us another Link monster that's actually good for the deck. But at least Poker Knights can do what they've always done better than ever, and that is get sacrificed for a greater good.
Hello there.
Thank you everyone for watching this latest archetype analysis, one that's been coming for a long time. I did end up taking that break I talked about just over the first part of February instead of January, and I hope you guys can forgive me for making you wait. I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been overabundant on my channel lately, but I'm stuck playing a bunch of super long video games for footage, so I hope you can understand. The next video will be video game related, I promise. If you think that I've earned it, please like and subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon, it really helps keep the channel going. With all that said, I think we're done here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.